So, dear all, welcome to the O'Malley School of Business seminar. Today we have the pleasure, the honor and the privilege to have Nobel Laureate Robert Aumann presenting in our seminar. Professor Aumann is a mathematician and a distinguished game theorist. He received his PhD in mathematics from MIT in 1955. He has been professor at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and is one of the founders and main contributors of the Center for Rationality at the same university, which deals with game theory. Professor Aumann is the author of hundreds of scientific papers and 6 books and has held visiting positions at Princeton, Yale, UC Berkeley, UC Louvain, Stanford, Stony Brook, and Tel Aviv University. He has been active in numerous professional organizations, serving as president of the Game Theory Society and the Israel Mathematics Union. He is an elected fellow of the Econometric Society and a member of the US National Academy of Sciences, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Israel Academy of Sciences, and the British Academy. Last but not least, Professor Aumann has received numerous prizes, including the John von Neumann Theory Prize for the long contributions to game theory, and of course the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences for 2005, which he shared with Thomas Schelling. The Nobel Prize was for having enhanced our understanding of conflict and cooperation through game theory analysis. So let's all of us welcome Professor Aumann.
Okay, I'm very glad to be right here in the Manhattan College School of Business. It's true that I'm about 5,000 miles away, but I'm right here. Modern technology brings me right into the Manhattan College School of Business. And I'm especially happy to be in the School of Business because as you'll see, because behavioral economics is very much the talk of the town nowadays, and we want to say some important things about behavioral economics, and we get really better to understand, and especially in the School of Business. There's a lot of talk about behavioral economics that is different from mainstream economics, and I'm going to tell you that they're the same. Okay, it's the same thing. So let's get started. Professor Komaisis, how much time should this talk last? I mean, do we want to leave time for questions and answers?
Usually, yeah. I mean, it's between 1 and 2 p.m.
Yeah.
If you exceed the time, it would be fine, of course, right?
Should I leave 10 minutes or 15 minutes for questions and answers?
15 minutes of questions should be enough. 15 minutes of questions.
Okay, fine. Very good. All right, so let's go on. And this paper appeared in a journal called Nature Human Behavior. It appeared well over 2 years ago. Okay, and you have the URL. It was right here on the screen, and I'll put it back on the screen at the end of the lecture. Okay. The question, why do economic theory? Well, the obvious answer is to understand how the economic world works, okay? But then the question arises, but economic theory assumes rationality. What does rationality mean? Rationality means that people act to promote their goals, okay? Now, behavioral economics has shown, or has claims to have shown, that people do not act to promote their goals. They're not rational, okay? They act by rules of thumb, which the behavioral economists call heuristics and biases. And often they have very poor results, okay? So people are irrational, they don't act to promote their goals, and that goes against economic theory, and really people really get bad results, okay? That's what behavioral economics says, if I'm not mistaken, okay? You can correct me if I'm wrong in the question period. So we're going to adopt the approach of the German philosopher Hegel about 200 years ago. And he had this idea of a thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis, which means one side says X and the other side says not X, okay? And then you try to find the truth in each of those sides, and you synthesize them. And that's what I'm going to try to do this evening, is to say what is correct in mainstream economics and what is correct in behavioral economics, and we're going to synthesize them and make one dish out of them, okay? So what's the thesis? The thesis is economic theory, rationality. People act to promote their goals. That's what economic theory says. And the antithesis is behavioral economics, which is irrationality, okay? It's the opposite, not X. People act by rules of thumb, often with poor results, okay? Now we are going to suggest a synthesis, which we're going to call rule rationality, that people act by rules of thumb that usually, but not always, promote their goals. So the behavioral economists are right that people don't figure things out, okay? They act by rules of thumbs, what they call heuristics or biases, and they don't figure things out. But the rule, the heuristic and the bias usually gives good results. So the rule is a good rule, okay? The rule, one could say the rule is rational. All right, and that's what I'm going to try to sell you tonight. And the conclusion is that economic theory is relevant after all. Why? Because economic theory is not about what people think, it's about what people do, okay? And they do behave rationally. It's not because they believe in some axioms and then they follow what follows from those axioms. They don't think things through. They do behave by rules of thumb, by heuristics and biases, but that usually gives good results, okay? And the results that it gives are embedded in economic theory, okay? So let's see how that works. First of all, we don't claim priority for the observation that the rules usually promote people's goals, okay? The heuristics and biases of behavioral economics usually promote people, and we're not the first people to say that. I'm not the first person to say that. Guess who is the first person to say it? Guess who? All right, this is a quote from a paper, a published paper, okay, about 50 years ago. In general, these heuristics are quite useful because they were talking about the heuristics of behavioral economics. But sometimes they lead to severe and systematic errors. Guess who said that? Okay?
Tversky.
Tversky and Kahneman, the high priest of behavioral economics, they said that in their original path-breaking paper, Judgment Under Uncertainty, Heuristics and Biases. That was the path-breaking paper. That was the opening shot of behavioral economics. It was published in Science. Here's the thing. It's a famous paper. Now, I'm not the second person to say this also. Somebody else said it for a second time. Okay, what did they say? These heuristics are often useful, but they sometimes lead to characteristic errors or biases, okay? Now, guess who said that? It wasn't Tversky and Kahneman. It was not. It was somebody else. Who? Kahneman and Tversky, okay? And they said that 20 years later in the Psychological Review in this paper. It's not as well known as the Science paper, but it's a well-known paper also. So the high priests of behavioral economics, they themselves say that the rules are usually good. So if they're usually good, that's what people do. And that leads to economic theory. All right. Now let's go on. So that what I said is not new. Okay. So why am I giving a talk in Manhattan College? Okay. What is new today? And what's new is that behavioral economics dwells exclusively on the sometimes, all right? Sometimes, okay? Sometimes in both quotes, sometimes. So behavioral economics dwells exclusively on the sometimes, the severe and systematic errors, where the heuristics do not work, okay? In our humble opinion, the insight that behavioral economics yields into the in general, okay, remember in general, where the heuristics do work is much more important. Yeah, okay. Now the sometimes is really sometimes, okay, I'm gonna show this to you in the sequel. It really occurs very rarely, the sometimes, okay? Moreover, we do claim priority on this observation, okay? When do the rules lead to severe and systematic errors? The answer is in exceptional or contrived situations, okay? It's not only that they sometimes do it, but they do it in a specific, we can identify when the rules give irrational results. And that is in situations that occur very rarely or never. They're contrived, okay? They never occur in the real world. We'll see some examples. And the most important examples of behavioral economics are contrived. They don't occur in the real world, okay? They occur in the experiments of Kahneman and Tversky and Taylor and Rabin and all those people who, you know, they're very smart people. But I think they didn't realize this, okay? Why do they occur in exceptional or contrived situations? Because the rules which were not consciously adopted did not spring from nowhere, okay? How did they come about? Why did they become a rule? They evolved biologically or more frequently culturally. In other words, they were learned. Evolution does not work on the exceptional or contrived situation. Evolution works by a survival of the fittest. A rule survives, in other words, it's adopted, if and only if it works well when applied repeatedly. An occasional instance where it does not work has no effect, okay? Okay, that's how evolution works, because it works on the big picture. It doesn't work on one. And of course, a contrived situation certainly has no effect, since it never occurs in practice, okay? Now we're going to give some examples. And we'll start with the most famous example in the discipline of behavioral economics. That's Linda. Linda is young, single, outspoken, and very bright. As a student, she was deeply concerned with discrimination and social justice. So now the respondent, okay, they take students and they catch up with them in the hallway of the university, and they buttonhole them and they say, is it more likely that Linda is a bank teller or that she is a bank teller and an active feminist? All right. All right, that's the example. Yeah, okay, now let me tell you, honored audience, you laugh, but 72% of the respondents said that it is more likely that she is a bank teller and an active feminist than that she is a bank teller. Okay, 72%. These were university students, okay? They're like you people, okay? So they tell them the story, they catch up with them someplace and they tell them the story, and the guy says, okay, she's a bank, she sounds like she's an active feminist, so you're going to tell you the word active feminist occurs, I will say, okay, she's an active feminist. Okay, a bank teller and an active feminist. Now, this is not in the textbooks of behavioral economics, but it's something that I have a book here at home. It's called the Real Mother Goose, and this rhyme is in it. As I was going to St. Ives, I met a man with 7 wives. Every wife had 7 sacks. Every sack had 7 cats. Every cat had 7 kids. Okay, and now, kids, cats, sacks, and wives. How many were going to St. Ives? All right, how many? Well, let's figure it out. Well, first of all, there was the man. There's me, I'm going to St. Ives. There's the man with 7 wives, that's 1 plus 1. There are the 7 wives. There are the 7 times, each wife had 7 sacks, so 7 times 7 sacks. Every sack has 7 cats, so there's 7 times 7 times 7 cats. And every cat had 7 kids. So there's 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. 2,802 were going to St. Ives. Right? What do you say, the audience, right? Right? Huh? Come on, tell us. Is it right or wrong?
Yeah.
No, it's one.
Right, okay. No, wrong.
He was going.
The correct answer is 1. I was going to St. Ives, yes. I met a man with 7 wives. Who says he's going to St. Ives? He's not going to St. Ives. Him and his cats and his sacks and his kids and his wives, they're not going to St. Ives. I'm going to St. Ives. Okay. So what's going on here? Wait, I'll ask you another question. And this is a question, I was writing this paper that I talked about I talked about writing this paper. Remember, it was published in Nature Human Behavior a couple of years ago, and I was writing that paper. And my great-grandson, one of my great-grandsons, comes to me and he says, "Grandpapa, why did Napoleon wear suspenders?" And I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I said, "Elad, I give up. Why did Napoleon wear suspenders?" The answer is to hold up his pants. So why didn't I catch that? Everybody wears suspenders to hold up his pants. I didn't catch it because of the word Napoleon. The answer is, what's the rule, the heuristic, the bias?
Yeah.
It's the relevance maxim. You assume automatically that what you are told is relevant, okay? Linda, you're told this long story about young, single, outspoken, very bright. She's deeply concerned. Oh, okay, everything, yes? With discrimination and social justice, you automatically assume that what you're told is relevant. Now, it doesn't matter whether she's a bank teller and an active feminist is less likely than her being a bank teller without that whole story, okay? The whole story is irrelevant, okay? But you assume that it's relevant. The whole story about the 7 wives and the sacks and the cats and the kids, okay? You assume it's relevant. You automatically assume that it's relevant, okay? The people in the room here, yeah, most of the people said that 2,802 is the right answer, yeah? No, okay, it's not relevant. They weren't going to St. Ives. Napoleon is not relevant. I couldn't answer the question, okay? Now, these are trick questions, yes? This has nothing to do with behavioral, people acting irrationally. Of course it's irrational, of course, but these are contrived trick questions. They don't occur in the real world, okay? Those are the first examples. And now I'm going to talk about some more examples. I'm not going to talk about them all because I have lots of them. And I'm increasing my thing all the time. I think every example in behavioral economics fits one of 2 or one of 3 frames. Now, what's the thing? In practice, behavioral economics is a collection of rules of thumb, also known as heuristics and biases. Each of these rules of thumb allegedly often leads to irrational behavior. Here we adduce examples from the behavioral economics literature and show that in each one, the observed behavior, okay? They show, they do surveys and they do experiments there. The observed behavior, the behavior prescribed by the rule is either indeed irrational, but the scenario is contrived. And in naturally occurring scenarios, the prescribed behavior is rational. It's only in that particular contrived scenario that so the rule is rational, okay? But it's a trick question, like in Linda, okay? And it doesn't occur in practice. In practice, the rule is rational. It prescribes rational behavior. That's one of the 2 possibilities. And there's another possibility, and that is, though at first appearing irrational, the behavior turns out on closer examination actually to be rational. Okay? The behavior turns out actually to be rational. So I'm using a color code. The first one where the behavior is indeed irrational, but the scenario is contrived and doesn't occur in practice, is red. And the other one where the behavior is in fact rational is blue. Okay? So this is a list of the example. We have 20 examples here. 20 examples from the behavioral economics literature. All right? And I'm building up. Yeah, by this time I have 30 examples, okay, but they're not included in the lecture. Now, obviously, we cannot talk about all of these this evening, but we'll talk about some of them. And a very nice one, a very typical one, Professor Komaitis suggested that we talk about that, and that is number 4, the Ultimatum Game. Okay, let's talk about that. Yeah, the Ultimatum Game. Okay, the Ultimatum Game is this played like this. Let me see. Okay. There are 2 players. There's a proposer and a responder. And they must divide, I've got 100 euros here. Sorry, okay, it should be dollars for this for this audience, okay? Sometimes I give this speech in Europe, so then it's euros. But $1 and a euro, they're about the same. So think of it as dollars. If they agree how, each gets his agreed share. If not, both get nothing. They sit at computers in separate rooms. They sit at computers in separate rooms and cannot communicate directly. The proposer starts by making a numerical offer to the responder without words. The responder responds by clicking yes or no on his computer. No other response is possible. It's a very simple game. The game is then over. The players get their payoffs. In other words, what the proposer proposed and the responder accepted. Or if he didn't accept, then they don't get anything, and they leave by separate doors. It's a one-time game. They did the experiment on many people, but for each pair, it's once, just once. They never see each other, nor learn each other's identity, never. The subjects are students and then don't have a lot of money. They're not particularly long on money. That's the game. Okay, now what is the behavior? What were the results? The results are most proposers offer around 35. Okay, in other words, they take 65 for themselves and offer 35 to the other guy. Smaller offers, say 20 euros, are rejected. Now, let me discuss this game a little bit. The proposer obviously has an advantage here, okay? He has an advantage because if he offers some sum which is not trivial to the responder, okay, then why should the responder walk away from $35? You shouldn't walk away. A reasonable guy who is not particularly long on money, yes, or a girl, yeah, nowadays you're not allowed to say guy, yes. So a reasonable woman, yes, who does not have a lot of money would not walk away from $35. Actually, a reasonable woman would not walk away from $20 either. But the fact is that smaller offers, smaller than 35, considerably smaller than 35, around 35 or more is of course accepted, but smaller offers are rejected, okay? Why would somebody do that? So the rule that people are following, the heuristic, the bias that people are following is don't let people kick you in the stomach. Reject lopsided offers. That's the rule, okay? Now, it's not rational, okay? The man or woman who is rejecting $20 is not behaving rationally. $20 is money. Yeah? It's not a whole lot of money, but it's money, okay? Why would you walk away from $20? It's not rational. So this is an example of behavioral economics where people say, okay, this is, people follow this bias, and it's not rational to walk away from this. It's an occurrence of irrationality. But I say something else. The mechanism for executing the rule are like hunger for eating. You know, when you eat also, okay, when you eat, you don't eat in order to get energy. You eat because you're hungry, okay? These are feelings, the reason that you behave this way, that you reject the lopsided offers, is because you have feelings of wounded pride, insult, desire for revenge, honor. You feel that the other guy behaved unfairly and you want to punish him, okay? You want to punish him. Now, the rule and its mechanism evolved in natural scenarios where the negotiators know each other. If in such scenarios you accept lopsided offers, you'll get a reputation for doing so. And in the future, you'll only get all lopsided offers, okay? This is a model for all kinds of negotiations, okay? And you'll only get lopsided offers. So rejecting is rational because there's a future. And you are identified. People know who you are, and you'll be earmarked as a sucker, okay? I don't know, when I was a kid, I grew up in New York, okay? I left New York about 70 years ago, so I don't know how the language has evolved, but the word sucker, is that still, people still people still use that, all right. So you'll get a reputation for being a sucker, okay? Hey, you don't want that reputation, okay? It's not good, you're not gonna make money that way. So rejecting is highly rational. In the contrived artificial ultimatum game, okay, reputational effects don't apply because the players are totally anonymous. They know each other, they don't know each other, they leave by different doors, they never see each other, they don't know each other. So take whatever you can get, yes, but they don't work that way, okay? The rule, they don't figure things out, that's right. Kahneman and Tversky are right that they don't figure things out. And that's an important contribution. That's important to underscore, okay? it's a contrived situation. Negotiations don't occur this way. In real negotiations, you have reputational effects, okay? The rule and its mechanism involved in natural scenarios, yes, where rejecting is highly rational, where reputational effects do apply. The rule is rational in spite of its irrationality in the contrived ultimatum game. Okay, so we have time for some more examples. So let's go. Let's take a blue example. Okay, let's take a blue example. A blue example is where Kahneman and Tversky and Taylor and Rabin and say it's irrational, but actually it's rational. And well, what would you like among the blue examples? Does anybody have any requests here? Hello?
16, the Cashmere Sweater.
Yep. 16, the Cashmere Sweater.
Okay, let's go to the Cashmere Sweater. Good.
Thanks.
We will know about the sweater. This green name.
Yeah,
The Cashmere Sweater, here we are, okay? Behavior. Lee's wife gives him an expensive cashmere sweater for Christmas. He had seen the sweater in the store and decided that it was too big of an indulgence to feel good about buying it, an expensive cashmere sweater. He is nevertheless delighted with the gift when his wife gives it to him. Lee and his wife pool all their financial assets. Neither has any separate source of money. Okay, this is inconsistent with economic theory. Lee feels better about spending family resources on an expensive sweater if his wife made the decision. So the sweater was no cheaper. Now this is quoted verbatim, okay? This is quoted verbatim from Richard Thaler, who got the Nobel Prize in 2018, 3 years ago. By the way, we're about to hear about the 2021 Nobel Prizes in economics. I think it'll be either tomorrow or Sunday or Monday, something like that. It's usually around October 10th. So this is in Richard Thaler, a Nobel laureate, in a book called Misbehaving, on pages 20 to 21, okay? That's what Thaler says. Now, I say that the rule is appreciate your wife's love, okay? Analysis. Many of us, I don't know about Thaler, but many of us value our personal relationships very highly. Lee's wife gives him the sweater as a sign of love. Lee realizes this and appreciates it. It makes him feel good. That he really likes the sweater also for its own sake and was even considering buying it makes him feel all the better. All right? That's what happens, okay? Lee is not irrational as Thaler. Okay, this is a blue example. He's not irrational. He is highly rational. It's, in our humble opinion, it's really strange to consider this a challenge to economic theory, okay? In other words, irrational. Rationality is about promoting your goals. That's what rationality is. It's to promote your goals. But not only your financial goals, okay? I don't know about Richard Thaler, okay? But I think this is highly rational. Besides, this is a Christmas gift. Surely Lee expects money to be sent for that. He's justifiably delighted that it was spent on something he really wanted. Even ignoring immaterial goals. How is this inconsistent with economic theory? Okay, I really don't understand it. All right, let's go back to the list of examples.
Taxi driver.
What's that? This
Taxi
one?
driver.
The bombing mission. Is that
No,
what you want?
Taxi
You
driver.
What's that?
The taxi driver. The taxi driver?
The taxi driver. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. New York City taxi drivers. This is a wonderful one. You'll notice it's not red and it's not light blue. It's neither one of those. Okay, so what is it? What is it? We'll soon see. It's green. It's not red. It's not really irrational, and it's not blue. It's not. Red was the contrived scenarios, and the blue ones were the ones that are really rational. They're not irrational at all. Now, what's the green one? Okay, we'll see. The behavior is New York City taxi drivers set themselves a goal of how much money to earn every day. When they have reached the goal, they go home. Okay. In good weather, it takes time to reach the goal. So they work comparatively long days. When it rains, there's a lot of demand. They reach the goal quickly and are able to enjoy a good rest at home. This is clearly irrational. I mean, the right thing to do is to go home when there's no demand, and to work to the limit when you are when there's a lot of demand. Yes, you're wasting. You're throwing away a good opportunity. On rainy days, you should work much longer, and you should rest when there's no demand. You should rest. Okay. So it's clearly irrational, but that's what happens, okay? That's what happens. Camera, Babcock, Lowenstein, and Taylor, Quarterly Journal of Economics, 1997, okay? When Professor Maya Bar Hillel told me about this a few years ago, she is an out behavioral economist. Yes, she swears by this stuff. Okay, when she told me about this a few years ago, she works in the Center for the Study of Rationality, which is where I work also. Okay, so we are colleagues there. And when she told me about this a few years ago, I was really puzzled. It was the first time I'd seen a convincing example of truly irrational economic behavior in the real world. Not exceptional, not contrived, long-lasting, systematic. Okay? I frankly did not know what to make of it and started to doubt my thesis. I said, Bob, what's going on over here? I mean, maybe you're talking nonsense. Maybe this is all wrong. This is really a problem. Okay, it's none of the things that you said before. It is definitely irrational, and it is not contrived. It's there in the real world day after day. Okay? More behavior. It ain't so. It doesn't replicate, okay? Faber in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, 2015, 18 years after the original paper, he tried it again. And it's not so, okay? It isn't so. In other words, when it rains, the taxi drivers stay out there, especially the more experienced ones, okay? I'll admit that maybe some of the newcomers behave the way of the original, like Camera, Backpart, Lowenstein, and Taylor. But the most of the drivers, including all the experienced ones, they don't behave that way. So that's the other way of resolving. The third way of resolving these examples is that it just isn't so. Okay, it doesn't happen. And the rule is maximize utility. You know, like we are taught in all the economics classes. That's the rule, and people follow it, and that's what they do. Now, my hat is off to Maya, okay, who graciously informed me of Faber's paper, okay? She, after telling me about this and letting me fret about it for a few months, she came to me and told me about Faber's paper that says it just doesn't replicate. Okay, I think it's 7:45. It's 2:15 in New York, and let me just say a few concluding words. Conclusions. Economic theory is valid after all. On the whole, people do behave rationally. It's not true that people don't behave as economists think. It's just not true, okay? But behavioral economics is also valid. Indeed, it's very important. People do not consciously optimize. They do follow rules of thumb, also known as heuristics and biases. So it's important to know what the rules are. A restaurant serving wholesome but tasteless food will quickly go out of business, okay? The rule is eat when you're hungry, eat tasty food. That's the rule, okay? It's not eat in order to get energy or to grow or something like that. It's eat when you're hungry. In short, far from contradicting each other, economic theory and behavioral economics complement each other beautifully. In fact, behavioral economics is what makes economic theory work. People actually do not figure things out, and that's a very important contribution of Kahneman and Tversky and the people who came after them. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, ask to unmute. Okay, unmute, please. I want to hear the applause. Okay. All right, and now this, I said I'll put this back on the screen. If you want to copy down or photograph this or something. Now we have time for questions. Okay, so Professor Komashis, maybe you want to take the chair.
Here, all the floor is open for questions. Just you have to come up front. Yeah.
Thank you so much for a very interesting talk. I was wondering if you have, you mentioned 3 heuristics that are the most important. Which one, in your opinion, is the most relevant for behavior?
3 heuristics?
Which-
what do you?
Which is the most important heuristic to consider to understand behavior?
Which heuristics are you talking about? I'm not sure I understand.
No, in general, from all the heuristics.
Ask the question again.
Which heuristic is they apply to different situations. What do you mean which is the most important? They apply to different situations. Look.
Is there one that is more repeated that is more observable?
No. Let me show you what it is. Okay. Oh, here, okay. Eat when you're hungry. Okay, that's a heuristic. Eat tasty food. Here, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. That's a heuristic. If you don't know, you don't know, okay? In other words, there's a big difference between a 99% probability and certainty, 100%. If you don't know, you don't know. Don't let people kick you in the stomach, okay? Reject lopsided offers. Prefer your own unless you have good reason not to prefer your own. That's the endowment effect. Prefer your own because you know about your own. Do what's expected, what looks good. Okay, in other words, I'm saying that the heuristics apply to all kinds of different situations. It's not as if there are 3 heuristics, each one applying to a different situation, each one applying to everything. Okay, they apply to different kinds of scenarios. All right. So, okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
There's one from the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello there. My name is Alex. I hope you're having a good day. I've been actually monitoring, as you might have seen a pop up earlier, we're actually live streaming this to YouTube. And we have here a comment that I'd like to see your thoughts on.
Okay.
Professor Hani Liu said, isn't the NYC taxi driver example consistent with millionaires retiring early and moving to Florida to relax? I mean, the millionaire can become a multimillionaire if she or he retires later. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Okay, all right, I'll answer that question, okay? There's a difference between a millionaire and a New York City taxi driver. Okay, there's a small difference. The difference is about $1 million. Okay. A millionaire retires early because he doesn't need more money, okay? He can retire early to Florida and enjoy life, and he doesn't have to work hard like he did before. The New York City taxi driver, he needs money for groceries, okay? So why would he go home on a day where he can make a lot of money and stay at work on days when he's not making money? Okay, he needs money. The millionaire doesn't need money. If I was a millionaire, I also would start. I wouldn't lecture at. No, actually, maybe I would. First of all, I'm not getting paid for this at all, okay? I'm not getting 1 penny for it. So I'm really doing it in order to sell my ideas, okay? So I would still give this talk, even if I was a millionaire, which I'm not. All right, next question.
Georgios, I have one.
You know,
We have one more
Any more?
question here.
Another one. Hi, good to see you. I'm Don Gibson, Dean of the O'Malley School. So one of the critiques of Kahneman and Tversky was that mainstream economic theory was about rational man and that rational man had no emotions, right? And this is where, like in the Cashmere Sweater, it was Lee's love that made that rational, right? So do you think mainstream economic theory has taken enough account of emotions, people in behavior?
I think mainstream economic theory from the very beginning did not talked only about rational man. And there's nothing about rational man that says that he has no emotions, okay? Rationality in economics. Let me give an example, okay? There's I had a graduate student called Uri Weiss, who one day he remarked to me. He said, "You know what the difference is between the word rationality as it's used in everyday life. In other words, a rational person is one who believes in science, who thinks logically and so on, and the meaning of the word rationality in economics. The word rationality in everyday life is, like I said, a person who thinks logically and believes in science and okay. And in economics, it just means one thing: a person who promotes his goals to the best of his knowledge, to the best of his information. He promotes his goals. Okay, that's what it means in economics. It doesn't mean anything about science or logic or anything like that. That's what it means. You promote your goals given your information. So he gave this, that's all it means. Always, it has for centuries, okay? Right? The economics doesn't mean that you're studying the stock market, okay? Now he says, so what is the difference between these two definitions? He says, take a person who's walking along the street and a black cat crosses his path, all right? If you're rational in the everyday sense, that you think logically and you think scientifically and so on, you just keep walking, okay? That's what a rational person in that sense would do. But a rational person in the economic sense, what he would do is he would spit in order to avoid the bad luck that with that, to the best of his information, a black cat crossing your path is bad luck. So in order to avoid the bad luck, you spit, and that's rational in the economic sense. You promote your goals, that's all it means. Maybe I should have said that in the first place. Okay, I'll try to say that rationality is promoting your goals to the best of your ability. That's what it means. There's nothing about only being concerned with money. That has nothing to do with rationality. Okay, I think we have with economic rationality. It's now 1 minute to 2 in New York and 1 minute to 9 in Jerusalem. So I think we can just about wrap this up.
All Great. Very good.
Okay. I want to hear that. Again, you are muted.
Here, another
I
round
want
of
to hear the applause.
another.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. And thank you all for coming.